The words, "sure, I can do that," leave your mouth before you've even finished the processing. Your stomach does a slow, cold roll because you are already at your breaking point, but the yes arrives like an automatic reflex. It is the sound of a person trading their future peace for 10 seconds of immediate safety. This isn't kindness, it is a high-stakes survival strategy designed to keep the room quiet at the cost of your own exhaustion. You know this moment at work. Your manager asks for a quick favor on a Friday at 4:55 p.m. You've already mentally checked out, but you find yourself nodding. You aren't doing it because you have the time, you're doing it because the imagined look of disappointment on their face feels like a physical threat you aren't prepared to handle. It happens in your friendships too. You're exhausted, your battery is at zero, and all you want is a night alone. But when the text comes in for a birthday you barely care about, you type "can't wait" with a row of enthusiastic emojis. You are performing a version of yourself that is always available because you're terrified of what happens to the friendship if you ever become a person with boundaries. You even do it with the waiter who brings you the wrong order. You look at the plate, realize it's not what you asked for, and when they ask if everything is okay, you smile and say it's perfect. You would rather eat a meal you didn't want than face the 30 seconds of awkwardness it takes to send it back. Even with strangers, the pattern holds. A neighbor stops you for small talk when you're already 10 minutes late. Instead of leaving, you stand there, shifting your weight, nodding for 6 agonizing minutes. You are literally being held hostage by your own inability to be the one who ends the interaction. You would rather be late for your own life than be the rude person who says, "I have to go." Which, when you say it out loud, sounds slightly absurd. You are a grown adult being governed by the fear of a stranger's fleeting opinion. But in that moment, the no feels like a bomb you're being asked to detonate. This happens because your brain has misclassified social friction as mortal danger. When someone asks you for something, your internal system performs a lightning-fast risk assessment. It doesn't ask, "Do I have the capacity?" It asks, "Can I survive their reaction if I refuse?" Thousands of years ago, if you weren't helpful to the tribe, you were exiled. And in the wild, exile meant death. Your amygdala, the part of your brain that scans for lions, has started treating a disappointed look like a predator's growl. You aren't being a pushover, you are experiencing a biological hijack. You are trying to survive a social interaction as if it were a life or death struggle. If your system detects even a 1% chance of conflict, it triggers the compliance loop. The pressure of a request creates a spike of stress. To kill that stress instantly, you say yes. For 3 seconds, you feel a massive hit of relief because the conflict is gone. But that relief is a lie. It's immediately replaced by a slow burning resentment because you've just inherited a task you never wanted. You start pre-apologizing. Before you've even done anything wrong, you're explaining why you're busy or why you wish you could do more. You are providing a defense attorney for a crime you haven't committed. You become a yes junkie, not because you love helping, but because you're addicted to the moment the pressure stops. You aren't managing your schedule, you are managing your adrenaline. And here is the part nobody talks about. Your yes eventually sounds like a sigh. You start doing the favor while mentally drafting an imaginary argument you'll never actually have. You're washing the dishes you didn't agree to wash, banging them against the sink just loud enough so they hear your frustration, but not loud enough that they actually ask what's wrong, because then you'd have to say no all over again. This software wasn't the glitch, it was a masterpiece of childhood survival. You weren't born nice. You were born into an environment where being easy was the only way to stay safe. Maybe you grew up in a house where the air was always heavy, with a parent's unspoken stress. You learned very early that if you were the perfect child, if you never made a mess and never ever said no, the temperature in the room stayed just a little bit cooler. You became a human thermostat, constantly adjusting your own needs to keep everyone else from boiling over. In that world, a no wasn't just a boundary. It was a match in a room full of gasoline. So you traded your voice for a shield. You became the helpful one, the reliable one, the one who never caused the problem. At 7 years old, that wasn't a mistake. It was brilliant. It worked. The problem is that you are no longer in that room. You are a grown adult with your own front door, but your nervous system is still 7 years old, standing in that hallway, terrified that if you don't comply, the world will explode. You are using a survival kit from a war that ended 20 years ago.
The cost of this pattern isn't just that you're busy, it's that you are a ghost in your own life. When you say yes to everyone else, you are effectively saying no to yourself. But it's a quiet no. It's the no that happens when you're too exhausted to pursue the hobby you actually love, because you spent your evening helping someone move furniture you didn't want to touch. Here is the part that's hard to hear. Your yes is often a covert contract. You're giving your time away with the unspoken expectation that people will see your exhaustion and offer you the rest you can't give yourself. But they won't. People don't value what is given away for free. By saying yes to everything, you have accidentally trained the world to treat your time like an infinite resource. You are building a mountain of resentment out of stones you chose to pick up yourself. The empty list does not feel like completion. It feels like exposure. If you stop doing things for everyone else, you're terrified of who would be left in the mirror. You've spent so long being the answer to everyone else's questions that you've forgotten how to ask your own. You have forgotten what full feels like because you are constantly being drained to fill everyone else's cup. You are living a life that belongs to everyone but you. The version of you that knows how to say no isn't missing. It's just been quieter than the survival system running your life. You have spent years being a mirror, reflecting everyone else's needs so they wouldn't have to face their own disappointment. But you are allowed to have edges. You are allowed to be a person who is occasionally inconvenient. You have permission to let the silence stay heavy after you say no without rushing in to fill it with an apology. You do not have to be easy to get along with to be worthy of staying in the room. The world will not break if you stop holding it up. What you are actually practicing is discomfort tolerance. When you say no and the silence follows, your skin will crawl. You will feel a physical itch to apologize. That itch is just a chemical spike in your bloodstream. It lasts about 10 seconds. If you can sit through those 10 seconds without moving, if you can let the other person hold their own disappointment, the spike will die. You are performing social exposure therapy. You are retraining your nervous system to realize that someone being unhappy with you is not a lethal event. Start small. The next time someone asks for a quick favor you don't have the capacity for, try saying, "I can't do that right now." And then, this is the hard part, stop talking. Don't explain, don't offer a backup plan. Just let the no exist. You might feel a spike of that old 7-year-old adrenaline. That's okay. It's just an old alarm system realizing the house isn't on fire anymore. A yes that is forced isn't a gift, it's a debt, and you've paid enough. You are allowed to be the reason the plan falls apart, because the people who actually love you would rather have a no that is honest than a yes that is making you disappear. Whenever you're ready to stop being a mirror and start being a person, the air is a lot easier to breathe on this side of the line.